Gnomon School of Visual Effects, Games, and Animation. We are streaming live from Hollywood this afternoon, so thank you all for joining us, both here in the stage and those watching online also. So today's event brings two incredible concept artists to share from Method Studios to share with us how they bring a director's vision to life for the big screen, from script to final concept. Philippe Gaulier is a senior art director at Method here in LA, who has created numerous concepts and visuals for many awesome films, including Mad Max, Fury Road, Avengers, Age of Ultron, and more recently, Doctor Strange. Olivier Pron is a supervising art director at Method. He's likewise created pre-production visuals for some incredible films, including Cloud Atlas, Doctor Strange, and Guardians of the Galaxy. So let's have a round of applause for today's guests. So Philippe and Olivier will be sharing with us today their experiences, methods, and techniques for creating concept art and visuals for films. We'll hear about some of the challenges they face during the pre-production process in a film production environment, and we'll get insights into their contributions to films such as Doctor Strange, Mad Max Fury Road, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Avengers Age of Ultron. Marvel is very kindly allowing us to stream today's event on Livestream, so thank you, Marvel. We're also streaming on Facebook Live. However, once the event ends, we'll not be archiving the complete event. So if you are tuning in online, please make sure you stay with us. We hope to re-upload an edited version of today's event for future viewers, minus the Marvel visuals, but to make sure you see all the cool Marvel stuff today, please keep watching for the next couple of hours. So we'll be happy to take your questions today. As always, for those with questions here in the stage, please raise your hand and we'll bring a mic to you. For any online questions, please submit those using #Gnomon on Twitter or on the Livestream live chat. If you're watching on Facebook Live, please feel free to comment. It's hard for us to follow questions on there, so if you do want to speak to us directly, please use Twitter or the live chat function. So we have some awesome prizes today too. We have a copy of Sparth's Structura book, which is courtesy of Design Studio Press for one member of today's audience. We also have a 1-month subscription to the Gnomon Workshop for an online viewer. Even more awesome, we have 2 packages of View Extreme and Plant Factory Producer to give away. So one of those will go to a lucky audience member today, another will go to a live stream viewer. So if you're watching online, to enter, please share the live stream event URL on Twitter using #Gnomon. If you're watching on Facebook Live, to find the event on Livestream, head to livestream.com/Gnomon. Before we get started, I would like to, of course, thank Eon Software for their support today and for connecting us with Philippe and Olivier. So thank you, Isabel, Patrice, Matt. We'd also like to thank our event sponsor, Lenovo. Today's presentation is powered by Lenovo and Intel technology, which our students also use here on campus too. So thank you guys. Okay, so let's have another big round of applause, and we'll hand over to Philippe and Olivier. Thank you.
Hi everyone.
Hi everyone.
So this is Olivier.
It's Philippe.
Voilà, that's it, you know who's who. So we're going to start by talking about Jupiter Ascending, and this project for us was very special because we spent a lot of time on it, nearly 3 years, 2.5 years actually, yes. On and off, from the very early beginning down to the end of the post-production. And it was a great experience, creatively. We met a lot of talented people along the way, and we had to produce like an insane amount of pictures, because as you would expect, the script changed like many times, and the approach that they wanted to have for the visuals and this world, the one they wanted to create, changed a few times as well. So every time we had to aim for something else, and some sequences would get shorter, longer, and so on. But it's been very exciting, like overall. So this sequence,
maybe a brief history on the sequence. Okay, yeah. So the brief on the sequence we did mostly the work on is a sequence where the main character is supposed to arrive in that solar system, and we were supposed to follow them from the entry to the solar system down to a planet level. So we had to come up with progressions and designing all the steps all the way. So here, in this first concept, it was, so you have the main governmental planet, which is called Horus, that you can see here. It's supposed to be surrounded and inhabited for, what, millions of years.
Yeah.
It's been defined as the cradle of their civilization. So therefore, they wanted something extremely busy, highly industrialized, with rings, planets, satellites, asteroids.
Yeah, lots and lots of layers and layers and layers. And actually, just on a side note, in regards to Horus and the whole like design direction of the film, we met with the Wachowskis at a very early stage.
Yeah, they were actually finishing on Cloud Atlas at the time.
And they were in Berlin. So we were in London at the time, because we both worked in London for many years before we moved to LA. And so we just basically jumped on a plane in the morning, got to Berlin, met with them face-to-face, and the production designer, Hugh Bateup, and the VFX supervisor on the project, Dan Glass, as well. And they explained to us their vision for the film, and we can tell that Lana, especially, because she's the one that we spoke to the most, she has like this incredible knowledge about all things, architecture, sculpture, animation,
comics,
pop culture, everything and anything. And she really had like a specific vision, but at the same time, she would give us a lot of creative freedom.
It's a very, very open brief. And that's sometimes one of the most difficult, because when you have a client say, oh, here what we want, but otherwise anything goes, it's really hard to produce the first pictures to make sure that you're going in the right direction. So sometimes you just have, let go and jump in the water.
Yeah.
Really.
So we'll continue. And so, as we said, this was like the first time we see this planet Horus. And here, it's
this is actually the final matte painting for the movie. So you have, then I did. So the funny thing is, Philippe worked on a pre-production on this, on the previous picture, and I ended up 3.5 years later doing the digital matte painting, on the very same shot and the same concept, with few variations, of course.
Yeah. So this is another concept when we get through the ring, because I mean it was so the main not issue, the main like exciting challenge,
yes.
Because it's not an issue. It was actually very exciting. Was the fact that the scale was so gigantic that we had to make it work, but in different shots at different times of the story, and it had to make sense. And at some point, they even spoke of having like changing the laws of physics. Like the gravity would be inversed and all that. And we kind of like abandoned this idea after a while because it was becoming too complicated and impractical. But yeah, the scale was a big thing on this. So how to translate such a massive scale and make it and we wanted it to still be understandable, to still make sense. So this is one of these examples. You're going through this ring that you see here.
Zoom.
This is where we are, like somewhere around here, maybe there.
Passing through it, yeah.
And
so we try to build all the conceptual, I could say, almost as a sequence. I mean, it's never a straightforward thing to do, but we try to have a logic progression to it. So we tend to always start by the broader picture first, and then slowly you refine everything and you bring new ideas as you go into the detail, into the smaller scale.
Yeah, and something that we do really often, because we've been working together for a very long time. And
15 years-ish?
Yeah, probably along those lines, yeah. And the way we tackle any job when we happen to be working on the same brief, we always, especially for that sort of things, because we're talking world building, we're talking things on a massive scale, we're talking about things that don't exist really. The idea to be successful when you do this, for us at least, it works for us. It's to try and find a logic behind it. Why do I put this there? Why are we going to do this? Why is this structure there? I mean, we're not going to explain every single little pixel on this picture, of course, because otherwise it wouldn't make any sense. But you have like, for example, this would be some sort of field those as well. So we created like some
Algae farms.
algae farms, floating farms, and everything. And we were trying to build a little story along the way in order to help us decide what we would put and where we would put it. And it really helps the visuals. It makes the visuals stronger because there's a backstory. And sometimes it comes from the director or the production designer. Sometimes it's just for us, to help us along the way.
It's basically create a set of rules that will define whatever world you want to design according to the directors and his vision, of course. And then, but after, whatever idea you might have, you just have to process it through that set of rules. And you end up, most of the time, to have a very consistent result with all around the spectrum of the concept you might produce, because they're all generated from the same set of rules and ideas. So on most of this concept, for example, they had that idea that they control completely gravity. So we had a lot of upside-down elements, upside-down world, just to try to convey that idea that they actually control gravity as they want.
Yeah. And this is, again, from concept
to final shot.
To final shot.
Yeah.
To matte painting. So
switch.
Yeah. So again, like the main ideas are respected. It's the same sort of a scale, and yeah. So it was successful in that sense that we could really have a complete follow-up. You know, like a full circle, like from the start to the very end, with a lot of control aesthetically, because we had the trust from the studio and the directors, so we could come up with ideas and lead the team in order to get the best possible results, faithful to what had been done early on. Another example.
Yeah. So here again. So we went through those rings, and now we're going through, and you know, it was just about showing that there was a lot of a different scale playing on here. So you have different space stations as well. You have some massive terminals, and this work here is very, very early stage, so it was really throwing a lot of ideas, a lot of shapes, and just to give the directors and the art directors all the options they might possibly, come up with, and so they can do their little shopping.
Yeah, pretty much. Another one, like we're getting closer to the planet. So the idea that the directors wanted to keep from the very start was that you had all these layers, right? Lots of things happening, very busy and all, and you would have these spires coming out of the planet, and they would be absolutely gigantic. Yeah, I don't know if the resolution of this one.
Yeah,
that's cool. So you could imagine like just a little piece like this would be the size of a
city.
Yeah. So it's absolutely enormous, and so it came with a few issues. Like today, when we worked on this one, so how do you design like a planet full scale with these little things coming out without making it look like little nails sticking out of a sphere? Because really quickly you run into massive issues, like visual issues, things that don't work the way you expected them to work. It's like how big is it, and how do you translate such a massive scale on a planet which is also massive without completely killing the scale? Because if you put like something that big on a sphere that big, it's going to make the planet look tiny. Yeah. So we had to play like to try.
Proportions are key here.
Proportions are really an atmosphere, and how you play with the depth and all that, and it was key into creating visuals for this film. So we learned a lot along the way. I mean, we've experimented a lot as well, and so it was very, very enriching for both of us. So more experimentation on the spires.
Yeah. Yes.
And some more
experimentations as well.
Yeah, we'd have this sort of like orbital lift here.
Yeah, because as we were working on the visual here, the stories carry on progressing, developing new ideas. So they had, along the way, they asked us to focus on one of those spires because they wanted to have the main spaceship that were supposed to follow during the first sequence actually not land, but arrive at the top of the spires, and we were supposed to follow their journey on the spires down to the planet level. So that's why it was a really key component for them. So we have quite a few iterations of those.
Yeah, some more like sometimes it was like almost like completely abstract. So it's it would have been really tough to translate this
as a volume
into a proper, like a, it's actually something
3D asset.
Yeah, because so it's on a side note. Actually, you often see concepts which are like great as concept, with lots of shapes and brushes
brushstrokes,
and it's all well and good. But the thing is that at some point it will need to be either built or modeled, or it will need to exist in the real world, right?
Yes.
And this is an example of something that we do, but knowing that later on we're gonna have to refine it. It's not just it's just. Yeah,
like random
I'm an artist, kind of like,
yeah.
no, it's, that you're gonna have to, so you always need to have a logic behind it, even if it looks very loose, you always need like to have like an explanation for it at some point. You cannot just like paint strokes and hope for the best, because it's gonna come back to you. It's gonna come back and bite you later on in the process, really. This was for the ministry building. The common ministry?
Commonwealth building, yeah.
Building,
so that's
it.
So they asked us to do a refining of the design for the top of the spires when actually the ship lands. So Philippe took care of this, and we came up with, so that's the final DMP work, and that's the concept. As you can see, we tend to try to stick to the original concept as much as we possibly can. I mean, there's a lot of elements there. I mean, on a very quick note, technically speaking, most of the concepts are done with a help of 3D. Most of them, there is a lot of 2D work, quick bashing on top. Yeah. Usually we both work a lot with Maya and Vue. On the side note also, that final frame here is just pretty much just one view render. So I literally took the setup that I come up with here, and I just push it and refine it until I have a theme-worthy result.
More research. Like we're not going to comment on all of them because there's been, and we had to reduce the amount because we produced like tons and tons of pictures. It's one of them, like a spaceport. Another one as well with. Where we explored like these more like abstract kind of shapes.
When you go into the atmosphere, they wanted to have a lot of those almost floating cities being built, people living on there, and the more you get close to the core of the planet, the poorer you are, and the more you have slum and poverty, etc. So here it's supposed to illustrate the most grand neighborhood of the planet, pretty much.
Yeah. And again, massive scale, depth, perspective, and all.
Yeah, so those pictures were still focusing on trying to show that you actually can rotate. On purpose, we show the horizontal line here is actually completely at an angle, just to illustrate the fact that you don't really care what is your orientation compared to the plane of the planet, since they control the gravity. So you can have entire building, entire structural city that can be 90 degrees from the gravity direction. Same here.
Same thing, big highways, again, massive floating structure with highways leading to the lower levels of the city, and like a giant web. And so you can see there's quite a lot to...
They really wanted a planet, teeming with life and activity.
And again, crazy thing this here that Olivier did.
Yeah.
There's actually a little show going on here. You got like a...
Yeah, just for the fun, the crowd is upside down actually, and you have the water creatures surging in the middle of the crowd.
And this was originally what was meant to be this building where Mila Kunis' character is going to get to become a queen. Or an empress, or a queen.
Empress.
Empress. And important.
It's important.
It is.
It's starting now. We start to go down the slum. Here, the idea on that frame was actually trying to show that those are pretty much abandoned buildings, and people are just pillaging them, almost like from far away, it might look like a cancer or something that literally eats the buildings away. Just to repurpose it and create some different environments. So try to have that slum feel going on here.
And same thing here, like again, massive scale. So this would be inside the city. So you would have level over level over levels. Here you'd have some slums, right here. And here, there's a boxing match happening.
Bare knuckle fight.
Yeah, yeah. This guy is fast. He doesn't look like, he looks a bit big, but he's fast, believe me. And yeah, so you could come up with all sorts of ideas. Like you could imagine a little world within the world. And usually when you do this, like either director or like directors ignore it. They say, yeah, okay, and just put it in your picture, and they don't mind because it's going to be an element somewhere in a very busy frame, or they're going to take the idea. It wasn't the case for this one because this whole sequence changed after a while. But yeah, sometimes you can bring up little ideas and things, or bigger ideas, and they will tell you whether or not they want to push in this direction. So it's really different every time, depending who you work with. So yeah, again, like closer
more
to
street level illustration,
yeah,
yes.
Street level. And again, playing with gravity here. And so they would have all these devices like in the street where you could walk on them. It's like it's halfway between junk and super advanced technology. You would have this sort of canal.
The junk of the future, pretty much.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah, and it's so a little homage to Moebius.
Yeah.
Just if you don't know Moebius, you probably do. You should check him out. Yeah, so again, like trying lots of different things, little sketches. Personally, every time I have a chance, even if it's to at the communication level at the beginning, I love to sketch. I sketch a lot. I sketch all the time. I have like a little passport-size sketchbooks. I got like at least 4 or 5 in my bag at all times, one in my pocket, ready for any situation. And I sketch like I use it as a tool to communicate, to sketch out like 1 minute sketch, to communicate an idea and to really know that the direction I'm going to take is the right direction. You don't want to start like, especially in a pre-production environment.
Yes, you can't.
You can't waste any time.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, on this one actually, it's an exception. We never
Yeah.
spend that much time. Usually in pre-production, you will spend a few months, literally, on any other project. If it's a really large, let's say, sci-fi project when you have to redesign everything, usually you have 4 to 6 months pre-production. But that's pretty much it. And you need to design an entire world, or mini world, and different things like props, vehicles, characters, and such. So 6 months, it's really short time.
Yeah. And yeah, more little sketches
yeah.
to try and here you would have like this sort of like creature in a jar or something, like I don't know what it's doing.
Just to bring
here.
ideas and different things there.
Not really happy. Doesn't look happy. And then you have like an interpretation which is more on the photoreal side. So from that to that, really keeping the ideas, and because at some point most directors, not all, but most will want to see something that's
pretty finished and pretty polished visually.
Yeah.
And the Wachowskis are extremely open, and since they have that huge pop cultures, so you can come at them with a sketch, explain an idea, there's no problem. But certain directors sometimes, who are a bit more photoreal driven, they need to see what is going to look like in the shot or in the movies. So, and it's actually the trend now. That's why we are somehow compelled to use more and more 3D and photograph phase elements, because a lot of concepts will not be approved at all if they are not in context and as photoreal as it can be.
Yeah, so it's for those of you here or listening online, when it comes to doing this job, like concept art in general, nowadays it's becoming much harder than it was to just stick to a traditional approach. Everyone, I'm not even talking about working digitally in Photoshop, I'm talking about the mix of 3D and 2D. This is what you have to do nowadays. You have to know a 3D software, because most of the time you're going to need it. We'll show you some examples later on where it was vital to have 3D, otherwise it should have been like not only a pain, but a near impossible task to achieve anything really without 3D. So it's one of yours.
Yeah, a little marketplace, just in the crowd and just show different things with, human are human, so, some drink getting kicked out of the pub. We were in the UK at the time, so that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like, like a typical night in London.
Yes, pretty much.
It's pretty much how it was. Yeah. And we're getting like down into the slums. These guys are planning a bank robbery.
That's your thing, huh?
Just so you know.
Yeah, they look mean. Pretty much.
They just they got it all planned up. They know exactly what they're gonna do. And again, from time to time, like little sketches. Not main characters, but some guys who could be walking around the streets. Because again, at the beginning of the film, they were supposed to be more alien species and like lots of like colorful like clothes and
vibrant alien
creatures
and stuff.
And it kind of like changed along the way. So this wasn't relevant anymore.
So that was during post-production. They came at me and they asked me to do some, how I should put it, robot courtesan, or how the Wachowski put it, robot whore, to put it plainly. Yeah. That was just try to bring, something a bit sexy-ish without too much frontal nudity here, because that was the point. So develop some.
It is there, but it's not
it's
there.
It's there, but it's not there. Yeah.
Which is.
It's PG-13.
Yes.
That's why the thin line.
Actually, we had a meeting on another film that I cannot name recently, and there's talking about because I had to make a joke about it. There was this character who kind of like transforms, but when he transforms, he can keep his clothes on, right? And so they were really adamant about the fact that we shouldn't see the penis, right? And so no penis. And at the end of the meeting, we just like went through all the notes. So no penis.
That's pretty much the only keynote you had.
And they looked at us and said, no penis. I said, okay. So, and Sam,
PG.
I apologize for.
Yeah, but it's internet, people know about those things.
So, actually, but you were in the costume department.
Yes, actually, they sent me in the costume department to my great surprise. I thought I was going to do some environment work, since it's tend to be my kind of specialty. No, I ended up doing sexy costume design. So that was really interesting and unexpected, really.
More sketches for another sequence to come. So again, this was during the pre-production actually. So it was on set at Livestream studios in London. And to communicate with the production designer, I would do these little sketches. Sometimes I would make them in the train on the way to the studio, because the studios same as in LA. The studios over there, they're like miles away from a civilization, in the middle of nowhere. And so it takes usually a long time to get there. So on average, we would, whether from your place, or it was from your place or mine.
Yeah, you have plenty of time to actually draw, sketch, and bring your ideas of the day to come.
Yeah, so I would wake up like at 5:15 in the morning in order to get ready, jump on the train, get to the studio, and start at 8 o'clock sharp. Because again, you can't be late. No one is late. No. You're not late, because really, I mean, it's the days are packed, and when it's on a pre-production, you have to produce a lot of work, and you have to be efficient. You have to deliver every day. There's no down there where I don't feel it today. I'm not in the mood.
No.
There's no such thing. So really, you have to really be organized. You have to know where you're going. And for me, a way to do it is to do these little sketches. It helps you relax a bit more as well. Once you know which direction you're going to take, after that, it's pretty much
straightforward.
Yeah, you just do what you know how to do. Once you have like enough experience, you know that you're going to get there. So this one was like a land pad, like a space pad kind of thing, where the main ship was supposed to land. Balem's ship, I think.
So here, if I'm correct, so quickly on the technical side, so here you use a bit of, it was what, SketchUp, I guess?
For this, yeah, because
perspective?
a typical example of, because to do this in 2D, and I'll show you the rest, they're all part of the same environment, right? So I went to the production designer, and he said, okay, so we're going to do this. He showed me a part of the script, and I said, all right, okay, and any ideas, anything? And he looked at me, obviously he was joking, but he was saying, he told me, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is, so just do it. Okay, all right. So I go back to my desk and say, oh, fuck, I'm going to do that. Because you have like different angles, very different angles. You arrive on this, in this environment, then you get closer, the camera goes there, it goes onto a bridge, and if you don't have a 3D base for that, you will be in a world of pain, because you have the guys in previs doing the previs at the same time on the other part of the studio, and if you come up with something like this and you do something that doesn't make any sense whatsoever, you're going to waste everyone's time, because it's not going to make sense in terms of scale, in terms of layout or anything. So they won't be able to rely on it to place their camera or anything. So you have to be accurate.
Especially when you're in a rush. Having a 3D base, nothing too crazy, something that can be done in 15, 20 minutes, really top. What really helps, it's avoid creating an Escher-like perspective, because after the guys who try to 3D model it, they're just going to kill themselves. I mean, it's impossible to interpret. So that's why having a 3D base at least guaranteed that you will be able to re-edit it in different angle if need be, still with a lot of work, but nonetheless, and you have something that is consistent toward your artwork.
Yeah. So this was an earlier version of it, and then from there, you see these pillars over there?
You wanted to come a close up?
This is what you get, up from there to there. So the spaceship has landed. You have those guys walking out.
And you can see the bridge that actually you draw on your...
Right, yeah, this is a bridge. This was a sketch, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's
combining all the elements and then different angles.
Here, so the camera kind of like moved this way, right? And now we're facing the bridge with those guys coming at us. And they wanted it to be ostentatious, but on this one, I got away with doing something fairly simple and graphic, which was nice as well, to keep it like with simple shapes.
They wanted something baroque. That was the term. Yeah. Something really baroque. But sometimes you need, it's like everything. You need to have different. You need empty moment to sell the super busy moment. It's like a music. Silence is part of the music. So here, empty, clean space are part of the rhythm of of this environment, as well as the super highly complex and intricate moment.
Yeah, and the idea was to have like simple shapes with lots of intricate details within those simple shapes. So a train sketch. So in the morning, just a little sketch. Okay, this guy is going to be on his floating throne. There's going to be this like escort, entourage around him, some little robots flying around, probably forming some sort of a protective shield of sorts, or anything goes again. And then here he is on his little seat, floating seat. And I've done another sketch that I don't have here with me for this scene here as well.
And a lot of time, actually, since you work with a team of other concept artists, and they usually tackle some other part that might end up in your picture, so sometimes you had to come back into your early stage concept and actually inject. So here they had that giant lizard creatures that was not fully designed at the time when the concept was made, and had to come back, integrate it into it. So there's a lot of back and forth as they refine both the script, the design of the character. Sometimes you have characters that get ditched, or entire sequence that get ditched, but that have huge impact in the concept, since you need to update everything to follow the storyline all the time. So yeah, a quick turnaround is really, really important.
Yeah, it's key. So more sketches for the throne. Those are like on a pad, like old school, because I find it easier personally when I do like line work and all that. And the actual
a refined. One of the sketches we refine in Photoshop, and clean lines, and try to bring the materials and the nice intricate texture you have, for all the.
Yeah. I actually apologized to the lady who's
Who ended up on the set because they actually did it with a real.
Yes, so there's an actress in there, and it's very uncomfortable.
Yes.
This is why I had to create at some point this thing here to support her arms. And I was walking around the set, and I saw her, and I said, "Are you going to be this character is going to be lying down?" She said, "Yeah." So I'm sorry.
Yeah, because she literally have the unbind in the back. She have a super heavy, thick metallic corset to literally from the waist down. She was completely immobile with her hand. She just really have just the neck and the head moving.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So it's very uncomfortable. So
and you know the time they spend setting up like this while they are shooting the sequence, the scene.
Painful.
Yes.
So you don't want to be there.
But that was for art.
Yeah.
That's for the greater good.
And yeah,
another version of the floating throne.
Yeah, this one would be this one here. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's pretty close to the final one.
Final thing, yes.
And this was more like towards the post-production. So we were both back at Method Studios designing a series.
Yeah, Ceres is actually the name of a planet was supposed to be pretty much like cherry color. Ceres means cherry in French, so that's how they decided to call it. So it was a cherry planet.
Yeah.
But at the end, they end up with a more lavender-ish tone on it.
Yeah, because the bed was a bit too red. There's only so much you can push when it comes to color grade until you don't believe in it anymore. You know, it's alien, and then at some point it's not alien anymore. It's just oversaturated. It doesn't work. You can accept it. So we had to turn it down like majorly. Yeah, so this is another one with like a...
Yeah, but on this word, since it's been done in post-production, they had a fairly good idea of what they wanted. They wanted a lot of water play, so a lot of waterfall, because after in the sequence, we follow a ship actually that arrives, that goes down here. There's a huge chasm when you have all the water flowing down, and there is a palace in the middle of the bottom down there. So that was something we knew from the start they wanted. The rings and the three moon was also something we had to work with because that was something they wanted from the start.
From the start, yeah.
And also the waterway. So that was the only key element they wanted. After it's just about color palette and choosing, because there's nothing revolutionary here. It's more about bringing all those ideas that the director have and make a picture out of it. Even if the content of the picture is nothing that never been seen before, but that really helped them visualize, okay, that's something they want, and then provide this to the post-production facility so they can create their assets.
Yeah.
Here, actually, the base here of the landscape, it's a view render with a bit of wall machine.
With some wall machine and some Photoshop on top, a coating of Photoshop. And this is an example of the sort of things, I mean, whether you work so for those of you who are familiar with it, the difference between, we're not going to get into it because it would be another hour, but the difference between pre-production and post-production when it comes to concept art and the nature of the work and all that, maybe another talk, who knows. So yeah, this is
So here you work with a plate.
Yeah, so it's a plate. So you start from a plate, so the light has been decided already. You know where you're going. The directors have a more precise idea of what they want, and no matter what you do, it has to be photoreal, because the idea is to give this to the rest of the team, modeling, texturing, lighting, etc., etc. So you cannot just do brush strokes or something illustrative. Otherwise, they're going to look at it and say, well, what do I do with that? It's just, I don't know, just deal with it, I don't care. It doesn't work. So you really have to be specific, precise, and to make it look like a shot, like an actual frame of the film. Another example for the...
for the holographic interfaces here. So the same. It was really integration work. That was mostly Photoshop, I guess, on this.
Yeah, this was
mostly 2D shop.
With a tiny bit of SketchUp.
Yeah, because so you know the surface we've been given were actually completely flat. Only those little detail here, and that was those gray surface was all they were here.
Yeah.
And then after you give that, then you start to work with the guys in VFX, because everything needs to be animated, how the things follow its each fingers and action, etc. So that's another graphic design development.
And it's a good example of what the Wachowskis usually like. I mean, it's something that came back quite often. The complex things. They love like
They love intricacy in the design visually. Yes.
So this was it's a perfect example of that. They don't want like something bulky or anything. They want it to be elegant, to have lots of little like second like animations and things happening at once. And this was for Advocate Bob, one of the characters in the film. So it was just some research for this guy who's for those who have seen it.
They wanted a robot with a human face, but they wanted to give it a little steampunk, baroque feel to it. So without being too steampunk, though. So bringing back the cogs, bringing back maybe some copper colors, some warm colors to give that more, old look on this.
And it's just like this is just a mix of like painting, photograph, a tiny bit of 3D, and anything goes really. And that's it for Jupiter.
So Assassin's Creed.
Assassin's Creed. Yeah, because the way it works for us, we sometimes work together. Sometimes we go on our own little adventures, like in the wild, working on different productions at the same time. And I think when I was on this, you were on, isn't it the next Avengers?
Yes.
Yeah, because he was working on another project, and I got called to work on this. So, but at some point we met and we.
Because it depends. Usually, when the project is fairly large, they ask you to. You can work remotely for some project, but most of Marvel projects you have to be on site on the studio. And at the time they were all in the UK outside London, so we had to work. I had to work over there, and Philippe has to remain in the office, keeping the house.
That's it. I was keeping. Yeah. No one comes in.
And doing a bit of Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, and I was doing back and forth to the studio. It was at Pinewood Studios in London, and. So this one, and we talked about this a lot actually, because the main, for Horus and Jupiter Ascending, the big challenge was the scale, right, and the intricacy of the designs and everything. For this, it was refreshing and it was completely different. And the idea was to, because I started right away on this cathedral in construction, and at first you think, it's going to be fun, and which it was, but it's more complex than it looks at first, because you start realizing that you have no idea how to build a cathedral, which comes without any surprise really, because but you don't know, like down to how were the scaffoldings made? What did the scaffolding look like at the time? How would they carry these big stones from the ground up there? How would they build the bloody thing? How would they do that? It's so you have to do a lot of research, and
it is not all the time. Those kind of research are not all the time carried by the studio for you.
No.
Sometimes it's up to the concept artists to bring it. So in that case, that's what Philippe did.
Yeah, and we talked about it a lot as well, like trying to find photographs. And there's this place in the south of France. It's still happening actually, where they're building a castle.
Yeah, using traditional tools. So we take a lot of inspiration from them.
Yeah.
And also read a historical book that explain how the craftsmen were actually building, and even just the scaffoldings, the cranes.
Yeah, everything.
And how you create an arc, etc. All the wooden support to have all the Gothic structures built, the stone carver, what kind of tool they have, and where they work, etc.
And if you don't know all that, you just can't be creative. And the production designer on this project was very adamant to do something that made sense, of course, because it's supposed to be like a historical setting, and his background was in architecture as well, so it put even more pressure. You can't really come up with like crazy stuff. Yeah, that's gonna work. No, you can't. You can improvise. So every stroke you put literally you put on the paper, it has to be right. With a bit of leeway, of course. There's
you're still working in films, so yeah, you take that reality, how things are made, and it just so you know exactly the amount of leeway you're gonna have with it. So here, yes, the overall idea of the scaffolding, the tools, the ladders, and whatnot, actually are pretty much correct. After how everything is assembled all together, how we piece everything together is
Yeah, it's
yeah, that's where you be a bit more creative because
yeah, or like that sort of thing, for example.
yeah, the little shed on the side of the scaffolding will never happen because you're already inside,
yeah.
so you don't need protection and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's bringing some nice, and like the scaffolding were actually much cleaner than what Philippe came up with.
Yeah.
It's just because it makes it more interesting visually.
Yeah, more exciting to the eye. And this little thing here was something that the production designer and the director wanted to bring more, because originally the sequence was supposed to be happening more like in this environment, on all these levels and everything. So there was a story about it. So it's because it's always story driven. And eventually it changed.
Yeah, because I mean, Assassin's Creed, there's a lot of parkour-like pursuit. So you had to have scaffolding that have a lot of little levels, little bars, a lot of elements, so they can create an interesting chase in that environment.
Yeah. And this one was usually, I mean, the way we both work actually. Usually, this is why this project was particular. I mean, for me at least. I always tend to go from like when you do a sketch, for a live drawing sketch. You go from general to detail. You don't start, obviously, by designing the eyelashes and the eye, right? The same thing goes with concept, whether you create a world or anything. I tend to have like a broad, kind of like a very rough approach at first, and then to refine things. And same when we work together. But in this one, the production designer was really wanted to nail the actual structures and the place right from the start. Even if it was in black and white, he didn't care. He didn't care about the atmosphere at first because because the budget was what it was, and he didn't want to go overboard. He wanted to stick to it and to know exactly what would be a set, what would be green screen. And some of the concepts that I don't have here, actually, they have some green screen in them. I just actually literally painted green on my concept to say, okay, this part is going to be built, and up to there, this is going to be green screen. And we would talk about it, and he would say, okay, lower it up, or put this in, get this out. And so it was interesting to work like that, because usually you have a bit more freedom at first, at least on all the productions we've worked on.
Yeah, and especially regarding build. Usually at the first, especially regarding environment, they're not very concerned. I mean, they have a vague idea of what they want to build or not, but usually they keep you free until it reaches a certain point when you refine the work and the pretty much a few months before they're actually shooting. Yeah. Yes, they might ask you to refine what is going to build and what's not, but it's pretty rare, actually. Yeah. I mean, most of the concept now, anyway, you have to work fairly closely with the visual effects team, the visual effects supervisor. So you have directors, production designers that is in charge of the entire look of a movie, and then you have the VFX supervisor who more and more play a key role, because you can design the most outstanding piece of set. If nobody is able to achieve what the director wants in terms of action, visual effects, it's still a failure at the end, regardless of the quality of your work. So you need to make sure that your work can be integrated into the movie production process the best possible.
Yeah, so it's your debate, doing a cool picture versus something that works or something that's relevant. And it's a mistake that you see maybe with younger artists who we all want to do cool pictures, at the end of the day. It's a fun job. We're not going to complain, it's like
could be worse.
It could be worse, yeah. And but you want to do nice stuff. You want to do exciting visuals. But sometimes you have boundaries. You have limitations, and sometimes they're harder than others. But you have to adapt to it. And there's always ways to find fun in anything you do anyway. I mean, it's as soon as you embrace it and you get into it, it's gonna be fun no matter what.
It's very true. Also, for example, just on characters. I mean, we're not gonna show much character today, but when you do character design, the first question that need to come up is, especially I'm talking here extreme design like aliens, creatures, kind of stuff, is it going to be makeup or is it going to be VFX or CG? If it's CG, pretty much anything goes. If it's makeup, you need to be extremely careful. You can't carve the shape of a human being, for example, because all you can do is add on top of the volumes. So there's a lot of consideration going on in those kind of concepts.
Yeah, so next time you watch a film about zombies, you'll be able to tell how much budget they had, depending how much they dig into the body. It's
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, it works every time. If they had lots of shit on top of them, they didn't have a lot of money. They start digging.
Practical. CG.
Yeah, that's it. So more like, it was like a big chase, so obviously like...
illustrating key moments.
Yes, like some little key moments of things that could happen. So this guy is chasing this one, he's jumping, he's probably gonna like catch a rope and then jump on the other side, and the whole sequence like changed towards the end of the film. And here again, like there was like a piece of it was a gargoyle actually, which was supposed to just go this way while he was being pulled up all the way to the top of the cathedral. So he comes here, then he goes onto the rope, up, he gets here, outside.
Escape from the roof.
Escape, running, they run all the time, these guys, and they jump. And so again, like the chase continues. And this was like the previous pictures you've seen at the beginning, the 3D renders, it was like an impression of the actual cathedral, like the full-scale cathedral with the scaffolds and everything, and outside, you know, like where you see the...
Yeah, it's the funny thing because on that show, you tended to design the technical drawing first, and then doing the mood or action pieces at the end. Most of the time, you do it. Your client asks you to do the other way around.
Yeah, which was interesting. And we learned. Yeah, I'm running out of time.
Yeah, 30 minutes, and we have 5
speak
other
too
movies.
much.
Yeah.
Fuck. So a guy on a horse and some guys jumping. And a guy is shooting arrows at them. Again, they won't escape. They're in trouble. And this was supposed to be the final shot of the film, and it's not anymore, but it was originally. So you have all these other like assassins everywhere,
Showing up on the rooftops.
Yeah. And just to finish, some quick ones. This was towards post-production. So and the director Justin Kurzel wanted things to be more of a like silhouetted, like his film. I don't know if you've seen his previous films, Macbeth, with Fassbinder. It's very silhouetty. It's very graphic. Very.
He wanted to bring back that into
this sort of idea.
Action piece. Yeah.
And we can start the Q&A maybe. We have 25 minutes left for everything. Yeah. So.
Maybe you can start questions.
Yeah, let's start the questions.
Yeah. If any.
If any questions.
Yeah, you're not very clear, so I'm sure they're going to have a lot of questions.
Yeah, we should have been more specific.
Yeah, I know.
Do we have any questions here in the stage? Yes.
Oh, we have a question over there. See one brave.
Guardians of the Galaxy, the second one that you guys worked on?
No, that was for the first one.
That was the first one?
That was the first one, yes.
We're not allowed to show anything yet.
Well, I've seen the first one too, so I would just...
So that was the first one. That was actually Xandar, where the entire finale of the movie happens.
So did they come to you with the idea first and you created it?
So how they come up with it, all you get is literally, there were a bit of, so you have literally, they give you the script that describe it, but when I say describe, it's like, oh, there is a dogfight of spaceship in the air, and there is the panic happening on the floor, but that's it. There's no, that building must look like this or this or this. It's really up to you to come up with something. And I was lucky enough, at the time, they had designed the logo of the Nova Corp, and I saw the logo, and I kind of, why we don't use that logo as the shape on the entire city? And everybody was like, oh, cool. And that's it. And I started from there. I also did a few iterations on the side just to make sure that that's what they didn't want. But yeah, they really stick with the Nova Corp logo, and that really helped me. You know, once you have the shape of the city, it's really easy. They wanted an island. They wanted a water world, pretty much. Was like Hawaii / Dubai, you know, those artificial islands, and they build all of that. It was supposed to be a really advanced civilization and a happy world with very sunny, pretty much like California, but in the future. So yeah, that's the only direction I had. So and because it was the end of the pre-production, it was approved fairly fast. They didn't have time to mess around and trying too much things.
But also on a side note, I mean, following to answer your question in a broader kind of way, you don't. They have lots of. They have a team of dedicated people usually on set in any pre-production, who has been gathering references, and they've been doing location scouting for like quite a long time before you actually start on the film. So usually they have like a visual Bible. Sometimes they don't, or they have like references of the sort of things they want, like pictures, 3D models, like other illustrations or whatnot. And then you have to take your inspiration from that. But sometimes there's hardly anything. So it's but you have like at least they give you a vibe of what they want.
Yeah, it's more about the idea. I mean, for those who never went into a pre-production office, one of the great things is pretty much all of them. What they do is in a corridor you have all the sequence described in the script, and you have all the pictures, even photographs. Even if they're just slightly evocative or something for the production, the art director and the production designer, and everything is stuck to the wall. So when you kind of lack of ideas and you want to refresh your mind, all you have to do is walk around those corridors and walk around. Oh, okay, so that is what they have in mind. But it's not have to be literal. For example, on Xandar, it was not, they didn't have a walk stick with a lot of pictures of cities. They had anything. It could be an illustration, it could be an architectural drawing, it could be...
Anything with fashion?
Yes, fashion as well.
Anything
it's
like
just really to bring you
fashion
into,
photography,
for
anything.
us, that's what we can find in the real world that would represent or be evocative of what we try to achieve. Yeah. And it's really useful as a tool.
We have another question here.
Mm-hmm.
Hello guys, thank you for showing us all that amazing here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for
all the
being here.
amazing work is really nice. I have a question with that. What about when you send the, you finish the whole work, right? Like a frame or a concept. Do you send the concept with a description? Like how do you imagine the animation going, the textures, materials that you think when you are drawing, that you can tell in the image, but maybe it's more that you want to say.
There is a few occurrences of this. I mean, so if you work on site, on pre-production, you don't need those because you discuss everything with the director directly or the production designer, so everybody's in the same loop. So there's no loss of information.
And it's a very fast turnaround as well.
And it's a fast turnaround, so they say, this is the frame I've done, the concept I've done, this is the idea I try to convey, and if they think it's not experimentary enough, you do another piece extra. It's a bit different when you work from your home, from your office, because you don't have, sometimes a 5-minute, 10-minute walk, talk is so much faster and easier than, having to explain an idea and a concept in the written. But sometimes you don't have any options. So
this is what the pace. Again, we're not going to get into it in detail, but the pace between the pre-production and post-production is very different, because in pre-production you're close to the director and the production designer. And as we said before, for those who don't know, the production designer is the guy who's in charge of the art department and all the aesthetic of the film, and down to the costumes and everything. And usually what happens is that he's going to come and see you several times a day and say, have you got something for me? Have you got something for me? Or he's going to come back like an hour later, yeah, there's been a change in the script. No, it's not this, it's that. And so you have to run after after the clock all the time, and it's exciting and all, but you have to really be very responsive and very quick. So the explanation of what you do, it should be self-explanatory, basically, because it changes and it evolves so fast that he knows exactly what you're meant to do, you know exactly what you have to do. So sometimes you can throw ideas into the mix, but it's usually very clear. Yes, now we should explore this, and then you're going to explore that, and you can add a few more ideas, but essentially he knows what you're doing. The production designer and the director, they know what you're up to, so it doesn't come as a surprise. You don't need to explain it, really.
You need to be said that sometimes when something technical, something that, let's say you have a prop, you need to design your props, and need to be unfolding in certain manner. I don't know, it's a box and open in a very specific ways. In that case, maybe we do a nice polished concept, a nice piece of the closed version, the open version, and then you can do just literally doing some sketches, really, really rough sketches, just to explain how it unfolds, etc. Because like this, if they like the look open and closed, you can keep those two approved concepts, and you can rework the in-between freely, with just very quick sketches.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how we convey the detail usually.
We have another 3 questions, so one here.
Hey, Olivier, Philippe, long time no see.
Hey, David.
So I was just wondering, what was your most interesting client experience, whether good or bad, and how you would approach a client that would say difficult?
The most exciting project we worked on?
All of them.
Yeah, or client experience.
All the clients were great.
Yes.
They're all amazing.
I mean,
All of them. No, to be honest, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I don't think when we worked together, we never had a bad experience.
No.
And individually either, we never worked with a horrible client. It really never happened, really. And even with concept artists as well. We never worked with anyone who had like either a massive ego or someone. It's always been like a sharing experience, which is the way it should be. Because if you're on your own, you run dry at some point. You cannot be.
You run in circles.
Yeah, you run in circle. You just you stagnate. So it's really good to work with others. And as far as clients are concerned, I mean, personally, I would say that Jupiter Ascending was great because the whole journey was amazing.
Yes.
The creative journey was amazing because we worked with a lot of talented people again, and we had a lot of creative freedom, and we were involved on the project for a very long time as well, and we could explore loads of things. So it was very fun, very fun.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I really. I mean, my personal favorite for different reasons, I think, must be Guardian 1, because they really came up with. And I was fairly surprised in such a fairly large and defined world, how open they were into taking chances, creatively speaking. I was expecting a lot more guidance. Say, oh no, you can do this because in the comics it's like this, and sometimes it's true, but it's mostly for the costume and such. For everything else, the spaceships and the props, the costume design, it was really anything go. We create a new world, and that was really exciting because I knew it was a new franchise from Marvel, so there's going to be a second one. Hopefully, there's going to be a third, and so on. So it was really exciting to work on the first one because you are establishing a look. It's almost. If somebody gives you the opportunity to work back in the days on the very first Star Wars, because you are defining a world, you're defining a new universe, and everything after you and the work is going to be based on this. So somehow knowing that you're going to have a huge influence on the future occurrence of the movie, that was really gratifying, to be honest.
Actually, I'm thinking of another project as well. I mean, because again, different experiences with different clients, and it's always pretty fun anyway. But it's a project that I cannot name, unfortunately.
Still ongoing.
It's gonna make for a great story. I cannot name the director either. But what was exciting about this one is, and it happened quite a while ago, a few years ago, and it was an adaptation of a comic book which won lots of awards and everything, and I happened to be a big fan of this particular comic book. And I got contacted when I was on holidays. We were on holidays in Japan, and we were just about to have a foot massage, actually, which is great.
Because he's human.
Yes, because it's nice sometimes. And we were sitting, and I didn't have any Wi-Fi or anything, so I just picked up the Wi-Fi from this place, and I got, and I received this email directly from the studio, who said, the director, blah, 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 loves your work, and he would like you to work on this, for a pitch for the studio, for the adaptation of this particular comic book. And it was, what was great about the whole experience is that it was a conversation like between me and him. We Skyped the first time when I was still in Japan. Then he gave me a lot of freedom. He asked me basically what I was in. He gave me the script, he sent me the script and told me to read it quickly, which I did. And then he just told me, okay, is there anything that inspires you in the film? Is there anything that you want to illustrate? Pick a few scenes, a few sequences, obviously, which are relevant to the film, not only some stuff that I wanted to do. And so I came up with a list, sent it to him, and then this is how we started. And we would keep calling each other like every couple of days, and he was in the States at the time, I was in London, and we would call, like he would be in the middle of the desert somewhere, he would be on his way to meet like actors and all, like elsewhere. And this is how it unfolded. I would send him sketches, and he would say, that's good. Sometimes you would hit a wall, you know, like you would do something and say, it's not cinematic enough, it's lacking something. And I was like, fuck, what is it lacking? What is it missing? And you're on your own, you know, in your office. And I think you were on another project at the time, so I was like alone in the office. Yeah?
I said, deal with it. So.
I was like in the dark, no one to talk to. And you know, sometimes you hit a wall. It's like, fuck, what does he want? You know, and then it clicks. And this is what's great about this job. It's the fact that sometimes you struggle a little bit. No one hits a mark every time, like for the first time. You know, when you get to a certain experience, you get to be able to produce images no matter what. But some of them are going to be very good. Some of them are going to be not as good. It's always going to be okay because it's what we do, and with experience, this is what you end up doing. You can always produce images, but once in a while, you just you don't. You know, the director might say, yeah, that's nice, or not, but you feel that you didn't nail it. It's not there yet, or sometimes the client will just tell you it's not what I want, and you can't really put your finger on it, and you really twist it in every direction possible, and eventually you find the solution, you find the opening. And that's a great feeling. You probably had it before, and everyone does really. And it's this is why this job is so exciting. You know, it's a bit of a struggle sometimes, and it's a smooth ride, and then a struggle, and then you challenge yourself. And this was for me a good experience actually, to be directly on the spot. Director telling me it's not what I want. It's like face to face, and I was the only designer on it. So anyway, so it was fun.
Okay, our next question's here.
Hi, how you guys doing?
Hey.
I'm very curious about, you were talking about the breathless pace. You have to be there at 8 and you're cranking out an image every day.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you're on something like Doctor Strange where, he's got that, I don't know what the sequence is called, but when he's going through the mind trip and he's...
that's the...
for the...
The name we had in production is the Magical Tour.
Magical Tour.
Yeah, so he's becoming spikes, and then they break into magma, and then all of a sudden he's magma, and then he's a baby in a bubble, and then he's blocks, and he's sand, and then he's strands into more black bubble. Each of these looks are so different. There's such a different, completely, it reminds me of Google. Every time you go to Google, there's a different look to it, where it's just, it looks like they've got 9,000 artists creating these things, and that's sort of what's required of you.
Yes.
But you have no time. Your pace is so fast. It's not like you can sit and drink coffee and flip through a magazine.
I always have my coffee no matter what.
I'm both French, lunchtime, don't get jumped.
Well, what I'm curious about is, that kind of pace, it could force you into a rut of just doing what you did before because you have no time to think.
Not sure. I mean, not really, because those clients are extremely mature, and you don't fool them. You're not gonna redo. They know exactly your work and everything you've done. So this is out of the question to do a bit of recycle, etc. Or maybe they ask you on purpose. Oh, I like what you did previously, but to come back on a pace, it could be an advantage actually, because you get very raw in your creative process. You don't have time to overthink everything, because sometimes that's what it gets in the way. You overthink things and you try to nail everything just right, perfect. And at the end, you haven't produced anything really relevant or any great pictures because you try to stuff too much thing in it. And sometimes having an ethic pace push you, in your boundaries and in your limits. It's like when you do 50-second sketch in front of a 15 or 30-second sketch or a minute sketch. They all have their own values and enter it on their own. It's a bit more difficult when you work with pictures and a lot of photo reference, etc., and you need to have a fully rendered color piece. But since they want a crazy pace, you don't have to be super picky. It's more about, first is just to literally throw ideas into it, and they always can be refined in the end. So,
but also it's down to research as well, because as we said before, they provide you with lots of research that they've done. But also you have to do your own research, because when you start having ideas, but how are you going to tackle it? I'm not talking about the technique. It could be 3D, 2D, anything. But what I mean is that the ideas that you're going to come up with, you need to have done a lot of research to basically inspire your thoughts and to inspire the pictures you're going to create, like in this short period of time. And so you cannot just, because there are things you cannot just imagine out of the blue. And if you have to make a picture that's set in a, I don't know, in a small village in Italy, 18th century, you're not going to come up with like this unless you're a weird genius.
I mean, this is the easiest case because you have a lot of reference. I mean,
yeah, you
know
need
where
that,
you're going, you know exactly what you need to achieve. But on a magic mystery tour on Doctor Strange, it was really
for this. It was. I mean, the thing is that on this one, it was probably not. It's not as challenging as other projects, because it's insane and crazy. If you have to develop like ideas in a world that's actually more tangible, which responds to a specific set of rules, a specific aesthetic and architecture and everything, it's probably more time-consuming and more difficult in some ways, because you have to respect lots of rules.
It's less difficult artistically speaking, but it's easier in,
yeah,
because you know exactly where you're going, when the other way around.
But for the magical tour, each idea is so crazy and insane that basically it's like being in a what's the expression, in a sweet shop.
Sweatshop?
No, sweet, like where you buy sweets and candies, in a candy shop. Oh, candy store, I got it, the third time. Like being a kid in a candy store, that's it.
Yeah, thoughtful choice,
The follow-up question I had to all of this stuff is, what do you do to keep your mind fertile and creative? Like maybe it's something you do in your off time, like
I would say nature.
Yeah, anything like talking, exploring, being always curious, never be content with what you do, never be completely happy with what you do, always looking at other people's work as well.
But I would say not too much.
To an extent.
I mean, that's something that you quickly realize, and since there is internet and it's so easier to access to other artists' work, etc. So it's really hard to find something that is really original and you can really go on your own. So sometimes when we start shows, it's happened to me. I just started on another Marvel, and they want a fresh take on something. So I'd say, okay, I won't see anything that's been produced by the other artists on purpose. So you can be somebody fresh, because if you recall why you had so much crazy individual variety, artistically speaking, let's say in the 70s or in the 80s, because all the artists were literally in their little corner of Earth and doing the illustration and the concept and the art. And sometimes there was a book edited, and you discover an artist. When here, everybody, everything is global. Everybody exchange ideas. Everybody exchange visuals. So sometimes it can be a bit parasitic in your own thoughts. So
yeah, actually, the trap is to get your inspiration only from other artists that you admire or that you respect. It's the best way to
just redo what
they've
done better than you.
Yeah, you're going to hit a creative wall at some point, because it's going to be like you're going to get stuck in a circle. You're just going to get your inspiration from people who also got their inspiration from someone else. So it's like you have to look elsewhere. You have to look in nature. You have to look in science, nature, in museums as well, because not only recent artists, but like classic artists. You should be in a museum like as often as you can. You should sketch a lot, draw a lot, like anything that you. I mean, personally, this is my take on it. Like anything that you draw and sketch, you kind of like register all these shapes that you sketch and that you paint from life. I mean, from imagination is one thing that I do often as well.
You need to immerse
from
yourself,
life.
literally.
Yeah, you need to eat everything you see. And if you sit somewhere, you see a nice light, and I'm gonna paint this because it's nice, and then it's gonna be part of your arsenal. You'll be able to use it later. Or if you see a shape that you like, a sculpture or anything, sketch it, because taking a picture of it isn't enough. You take a picture of it, it's gone. That's it. You took a picture. It's like with your millions of other pictures.
You don't have the same impact in your mind.
You're going to forget it.
Taking the notes and.
So you really have the best way to fix it and to basically retain all these things that you see on a daily basis is either to think about it, to write about it, to sketch about it, or to create even specific folders, like which are about light or about a particular type of architecture or something, to try and organize your thoughts and to benefit from everything you see around you.
And also train your eyes. I mean, there's something that happened a lot with Philippe. I mean, we just walk in the street and we say, oh, have you seen the little plants? Oh, look up there. And we literally stop in the street and we look at the little, I don't know, a crack, because we think the shape is cool. Oh, what is that materials here? Even if it's a piece of trash, it's irrelevant. You never know. It's just feeding your imagination. Oh, that could be a monster, or that could be a thing. So yeah, you can do pictures, you can do a bit of SketchUp and things. It's that feeding that process and make it a part of your everyday life. Literally.
And also,
or you're in your bed and you have some cracks in your ceiling and you're like, oh, that looks like a shape or something. It's like when you watch at clouds. It's keeping that mind, that openness in everything you see.
And also you have to keep, because it's one thing to be a commercial artist, which we are. We're commercial artists. We're not like fine artists. But it's always good to have your own little world on the side, to work on your own stuff, to develop your own way of looking at things, to experiment. And it's the only way to always be relevant, you know, to not completely dry out, to take risks. Because you don't always have time to take risks on a production because of time constraints and because you have to deliver. So you have to rely really often on what you know. You can take a calculated risk, I would say. But when it's your own stuff, you can fuck up. You can do horrible stuff. This is why a good example would be a sketchbook. I never buy very expensive sketchbooks. I buy
the pretty one with the nice laser bounding.
I find it's
you're afraid to touch it. So
exactly.
you're never gonna draw in it.
It's a beautiful object. You don't want to ruin it. Oh yeah, no, it's my second page, and my first sketch was beautiful on the first page. So I'm gonna. I don't want to mess up this one. You don't want to do that because it's you're gonna be. You're not gonna let go. And the best way to let go is to fail. And you fail all the time if you take risks. And by doing this, you progress. So it's how it works, really. I mean, for us at least.
Yeah, that's why we try.
We have a question from Livestream from Nicholas. He would like to know why you choose to use Vue rather than the likes of Maya.
That's a good question. Because I think, then straight out the box, how to say, I choose tools how fast I can put them into action. So you don't have, if, for example, it happens every day, if you use tool as complete and complex, for example, as Maya, if you reach a problem, oh, I can't render my stuff because the shader is not applied properly, whatever, and this kind of things, you don't have time for those kind of things. Post-production, maybe, because they have, they are highly specialized, they know their tools upside down, etc. No. What I like in Vue is I drop my object in it, in 2 seconds, I apply a shader, I push render, it's done. It looks beautiful, nice, with all the multi-passes, and there's a lot of little technical detail there, but I find it highly effective, and it actually matched the way and my philosophy or how I like to work. That's it. I've got other tools, but actually, yes, Vue is my main 3D render because it's just a push of a button, so that's all I ask. And there's enough flexibility so I can adjust and tweak and do my own stuff with it. But yeah, if I had the knowledge that I don't, I could perfectly use Maya. It's just about this. What is easier and more efficient? When you pick up a new tools, you open it on usually the first hour, 2 hours, because you have very little time to test new things in terms of tools. Because in a professional environment, you need to work and produce your own stuff, so you don't have much time for actual technical discovery. So you open a software, any softwares, and after 10, 15 minutes, half an hour, you watch what you can achieve without too much trouble or headache, or you assess the potential you can have on this. Can I achieve something quickly? Yes, no. If it takes me a day to prepare something, a day to render, and so on, I'm never going to use it. I know it. So that's why I use mostly Vue.
Thank you.
And I would use it just on a side note on this, because I don't use it in the same way that Olivier does. He knows Vue way better than I do. But I use it like as a first step to get what I want, because there's lots of things I like about it. Like, and it's for me. I get all the passes, I get all that if I need to. And it's a good tool for me, and it works for what I do. But I always want to keep it less 3D, and I always want to like mess it up at some point. So I'm going to use it to a point, and sometimes I'm going to bother this guy. It doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? And he will know.
Just press enter. Okay?
That's it.
The problem is often
it was there all the way.
It's between the chair and the keyboard. That's
it.
where the problem lies.
Always. Yeah, he puts a lot of pride in his knowledge of Vue, because he knows it very well. He knows it incredibly well, actually. So But this is why I'm not going to use it like extensively, because and it's not the sort of person I am anyway. I always use my 3D softwares to a point where I can jump into something more like 2D orientated. And Olivier tends to push the limits of the software and kind of like experiment with them and all that. So you can do all sorts of different things with the same software, really, with the same approach. You can obtain very different results.
Use it at a different level.
Yeah.
Awesome. And the last question here.
Hi, thank you. I saw every one of these movies, and I think you did a really good job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I would like to know if you can elaborate a little bit more about the cost, the budget for your particular segment. You mentioned commercial artists, and I would also like to know a little bit more at what time you are starting to be involved in the process. We are developing a science fiction movie, something like that. We actually have quite a few movies to be developed and TV series episodes. So how do you go about it, or how is that process? How does it?
So in terms of the process, why we always talk about post and pre-production and post-production.
Right.
So when you're involved in pre-production, it's everything you are involved, everything before the shoot. So it's really, people say they call it the movie industry, but everything but an industry, because every movie is very, very unique, very particular, and in so many levels. So when you work in pre-production, usually you are contacted by a production designer. You can make either they say, oh, what you would like to design. It's happened sometimes. They open the script. What you feel to have a go at. That's the best. And sometimes they say, oh, I would like you to work on this because I think that would suit you more, etc. And then you develop on that. So it's very, very early on, even as the script is written. It's not ideal, but that's how it is. It's.
Most of the time, actually, they don't have the final draft, or they don't even have a script when we
No,
get
they have
involved.
what they call treatment.
Yeah, treatment. Yeah.
Sometimes it's like literally. When I started on Doctor Strange, I read a treatment. He was 4 pages long.
Oh wow, okay.
So you're like, and the city go crazy. Present to the world. That's what makes it exciting as well, because that gives you an interaction with, not directly with the scriptwriter, but you get the script, you get the idea, and sometimes you never know. Sometimes your pictures are actually feeding idea for the scriptwriters. It goes on different level like this.
And also sometimes, like not necessarily during the pre-production, you got even the research before that, which is like the pitch to the studio. So you have usually a small team of people. They have a tiny budget, because it's usually financed by other
by
studios,
the director or the
producers,
studio actually
or
pays
smaller,
for
smaller
something,
studios, or before they start talking to the big guns, like the bigger studios. And you have to come up with ideas and pictures and everything, so you're still going to get paid as an artist.
That will be the earliest.
Exactly.
The pitch to the studio is the
pitch to the
earliest.
studio is like
you
the very
just have a
beginning.
bit of a script, and they say, like we did on Cloud Atlas.
Cloud Atlas, yeah,
For the Wachowski, they asked us to create a series of concepts. They didn't have the script, and they had the script, but they asked us to read the book when the story is extracted from, and they created a little booklet, and they went into the Cannes Festival actually to try to find producers and finance. So that's the super, 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 super early stage, and actually it's super interesting because
it's nice
you really everything goes. There's no limitation. They have no idea of budget at the time.
You have the genesis of the project, and you have a real conversation with the director or the people involved at an early stage, and it doesn't be. Not many people are involved either, so you can really, really make your mark as well, which is exciting. You can really try and come up with big ideas, which is very cool.
And budget-wise, we never talk really numbers, but to give you an idea, something like Doctor Strange, we were at the most anywhere between, I would say, the average was like 6 concept artists.
Say that again, please.
6 people
okay.
designing everything on the art department. The biggest art department I personally saw was on Guardians 1, when they actually ramp up to 15 at a given moment concept artists. That is huge. We'll never see, I don't think
probably on Jupiter, there was the people in the art department physically, probably 10 or something, if I remember well, but there were also people working remotely, which happened, same thing on Avengers. There were less people on set, probably 8 maybe or something, and there were other people who would work at first in the art department, then they would go and work remotely, and other people would just work remotely right from the start, and they would come back to touch base with the production designer once in a while. It's what happens as well.
But all Avengers, Doctor Strange, even the future Avenger, and then you have to wait 2 years before you can see our work. But yeah, it's usually that. It's between 5 and 8 people for a duration of
a few months.
Four to anywhere between 3, let's say 3 to 6 months.
To 8 sometimes, like it kind of.
So how do you determine your budget, your particular segment of that budget?
That's your work. That's up to the VFX team. Literally, I mean, when it's because it usually involve a lot of VFX. But yeah,
or the production team.
Yeah, that's the production team. They goes. Sometimes they come to you and they always ask them to be extremely candid and say, yeah, if you want to revision of your concept because of budget, let's go for it, and it's very important. But usually you have a discussion before. They know, they have a ballpark, what they want to build, how far they want to go, what kind of material they can use. Sometimes in some design I say, no, don't bring transparent element here because this is too large, this is too crazy of a shape to do. And also it's different because working with Marvel, they are concerned about the budget limitation, but they clearly not have the same limitation as an indie movie, obviously. So it's pretty broad.
Yeah, no, it is. But another thing I want to point out as well is, as a designer, it's better for you to, and in your case, because you're trying to make something happen, you want the designer to ask you, how much time do I have to do this? How much time do I have to do that, or to do that, to develop this particular part of the script, to develop this concept? Because they're going to have to work like in a very different way if they have like 2 days, or if they have a week, or 2 weeks, or a month. And they won't be able to work with the same logic at all. So it's important as well to define right from the start what you want to be achieved, and how much time you have to do this or that. It's extremely important, really. And you define that as a client. And we just say, hallelujah, okay, we'll do it, no matter what. You just, you go.
Try.
Yeah.
And then one last quick question. Yeah. I came a few minutes past 1. I'm not sure if you mentioned it. What country do you work out of? I mean, I hear a French accent, obviously.
No, there's no accent at all. What are you talking about?
We are local, born and raised in LA.
We completely like
West Coast.
Yeah. We're from around here.
Yeah.
So you're based in Los Angeles?
We born and raised in France, in Paris, actually, both of us.
And we lived in London for 15 years, roughly.
That's where we met, actually.
Where we met and worked like together, like on many projects. And then we moved here about
a year ago now.
Yeah, just under a year. Yeah.
So you're based out of Los Angeles?
Now
yes.
Okay,
but
perfect.
mostly,
that was my last question.
I mean, we were lucky enough because most of the Marvel production were actually done in the UK-based studio, so that gives us the opportunity to work on those. But now they're all done here.
Yeah,
they changed since pretty much this year.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. I think that'll be our last question. We're just running a tiny bit over. So let's have a round of applause for today's guest. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.
It's
been so great to have you here.
Pleasure.
And to get an insight into all that awesome work that goes into the blockbuster movies. So cool. Hope you're all feeling inspired here today